Hey there, I'm Grace.
And I'm Amelia.
And welcome to the Women Invest in Real Estate podcast, where we talk about getting started in real estate, scaling, and we give you the inside scoop about our day-to-days as full-time investors.
Interested in learning how to double your cash flow without the headache of turning your property into a hospitality-based short-term rental? Introducing Midterm Rentals. Register for our self-guided Midterm Rental Profit Academy course, where we walk you through step-by-step how to identify, analyze, furnish, market, and self-manage a midterm rental. Sign up at womeninvestinrealestate.com/MTR Profit Academy and use code PODCAST for $50 off today.
Welcome back to episode 8. Today's episode is a behind the scenes episode. So Amelia and I are going to talk about what we've been up to lately. And I think Amelia wants to kick it off with an eviction story.
Yes. So this is actually currently going down. It's my first ever eviction and maybe hopefully my last, knock on wood. Right. But I'm currently going through, it literally just happened. So this tenant has kind of been a problem for a while. He's paid rent late every month for probably the past 9 to 10 months, like a long time. He's also a very aggressive tenant towards me. He's been verbally abusive to me in the past, which is so weird to say is a tenant landlord relationship, but I'll hang up the phone whenever he starts chewing me out. And then he'll calm down and text me that he's sorry. It's just the most bizarre thing. Mm-hmm. So anyways, he hadn't paid rent for July.
Well,
and
wait. He also kicked his door in.
Oh, yeah, that's a minor detail. He locked himself out and then kicked his own door in and then expected me to pay for the damages. It's just been a whole thing, but it's one of those things as a real estate investor where you're I just don't have the time and energy to devote to him right now because he does eventually end up paying rent. And it's just this is at the 11 unit. So there've been other projects going on. Mm-hmm. I've been focusing on turning units and I just don't want that unit vacant right now. But now we're at a point where we've got a really, really high cash flow from the midterm rentals to where I can afford to have his unit empty for as long as it takes to 1, get him out. And then 2, it's going to need a full gut and rehab. So I contacted a local attorney who's basically that's all he does is evictions. It's a one-stop shop. They do the whole process. Mm-hmm. It is $19.90 for his retainer, which basically handles the entire eviction process. If he ends up getting the tenant evicted without having to go to court, I get $900 back. So it's essentially $1,000 to get this tenant evicted, which 100% worth it.
What do you think right now is going to happen? Do you think you're going to go to court?
Well, I have an update.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
They sent the letters, the 3-day notice 2 or 3 days ago via certified mail.
What was the
verbiage.
Notice? Yeah, what was because you have to have a reason. Did they not pay? Yeah. Did they not?
Non-payment of rent.
Okay.
And I haven't been able to get a hold of him through email, phone, anything like that. And they served the notice to him. And it basically was a 3-day notice to either pay in full or the eviction process would get started due to non-payment of rent. In addition to a 30-day notice to end his lease because he's on a month-to-month lease, which means he would have until the end of August to move out if that was the route that we take. So the attorney filed both of those concurrently, which is fairly common, especially if a tenant is on a month-to-month lease, because it gives you 2 outs. So the tenant received the notice yesterday in the mail and called me from another tenant's phone because apparently the reason I can't get a hold of him is because his phone is shut off because he can't pay that bill either. And He basically told me that I didn't answer because I do not want to communicate with him via phone.
That's why
for multiple reasons, but the main reason is because you want to make sure that everything is documented, especially with tenants just in general, but especially when you're going through an eviction. Mm-hmm. So I didn't answer, but he left me a voicemail that said he deposited $300 in my account a day or 2 prior and that he would have the rest for me next week. And he hoped that I wouldn't go through with the eviction if he could pay me next week and pay me in full for August and that he would be out by the end of August. Right.
So
So
then what were your thoughts there?
I was like, oh, that would be awesome because then I wouldn't lose any rent
Right.
and he would be out at the end of August. Right. However, I, of course, talked to my attorney about this and he advised me to return the $300 that he had
Okay.
paid because if I accept that partial payment, the judge would basically see that as me no longer wanting to pursue the eviction process.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I should accept payment from him from here on out would be he has until tomorrow because the 3-day notice went out a few days ago. And so he has 3 days after the day that it's delivered to pay in full. So he has until tomorrow to pay in full, essentially. If he doesn't pay in full, we'll proceed with the eviction process, which means that he would likely be out at the first week of August. So it's mid-July right now. So because my thought process was, well, if I can get rent from him in July and in August, like if
Mm-hmm.
the eviction's going to take till the end of August anyways, why not just like forego it? But anyways, so I'm going to return the $300 and we're going to proceed with the eviction as it is and hopefully get him out the first week of August. But it's like a huge weight off my chest. He just
Yeah.
called me like right before we started filming today and I didn't answer. And I basically texted that the tenant back whose phone he's using and said like I'm not going to be communicating via phone. I'm only communicating via written communication per the advice of my attorney.
And stop
And
lending your
he
phone.
right. And he said, like, he asked in the voicemail, when do I have to pay in full? And I said, per the letter that you received, you have until tomorrow to pay in full for the eviction process to stop. And so I'm just glad I got some sort of a response. I'm going on
Mm-hmm.
vacation this next week. I'm so glad I hired it out. It feels good to finally be done with this tenant and just get him out.
So do you think he will pay tomorrow?
I don't know because he doesn't have any money. And that's where I feel terrible is because I know that this tenant is struggling and I don't know if he has family, that I don't know if he has anywhere to go, but like just his behavior has been so awful. At this point, I have to put like my
And
human feelings
dangerous.
aside and dangerous. I have to put my human feelings aside and just like move forward from a business standpoint. I
It's really
just,
tough
yeah,
because, yeah, like you're always going to feel for your tenants as a semi decent person. But then it's like when you give so many chances and somebody has this behavior over and over again, you really just want to be done and be able to wipe your hands clean. Because I remember you were going to file for eviction like months ago and you decided not to because
right.
he fixed the door himself. And
Yep.
now I bet you wish you would have. And so, like, it's just a nasty loop of it gets temporarily fixed. Let's say he pays tomorrow and for August. And you're like, okay, well, great, I got the rent. But then in a couple months, you're going to be like, shit, I wish I would have
Yeah.
done that, which
It's
sucks.
it's both ways. Like one, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done it a while back, but at the same time, it's like I think everything works out how it
Yeah.
should. If he would have been evicted back then, like we were still, had
Right.
one or two other vacant units that we were like flipping to
Mm-hmm.
be midterm rentals. So I'm like, I think it worked out well. Actually, I feel so much relief to actually
Good.
just do it.
And so, how do you return the deposit? Do you literally, is it a check? Is it cash? You drop it off?
So yeah, so right now he takes rent directly to the bank because he didn't want to set up online payments. So I'm just going to write a check from our business account and put it in his mailbox. Or no, I might send it via certified mail just because that
Yeah.
proves that there's a track record, and then just like leave a note on his door that says, this is being returned to you, and take a picture that shows I've like posted, because I don't have like I can't get in contact with him via email or like
Mm-hmm.
text or anything. So just like document as much as I can the communication that I do have with him to be able to show the judge if it gets that far. I'm really hoping, and you asked like what do I hope actually happens? I'm really hoping that he just leaves without us actually having to go through the entire formal eviction, which would still put him out at the beginning of August, but like
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that he just leaves in a week or
Mm-hmm.
two.
Yeah. Well, me too.
I know, right? And I hope he doesn't damage the property on his way out. That's another reason why I was putting off evicting him for so long, is because he's so volatile that I'm worried that he'll damage
Yeah.
more than just his unit. So,
That sucks. Yeah, thankfully I have not had to go through an eviction process. I have done cash for keys quite a few times, I guess a handful of times with inherited tenants,
mhm,
because when I buy, I'm always trying to rehab everything. So like I need them
yeah.
out.
And
Um,
he was inherited. I want
Yeah.
that on the record. I did not place this tenant, and that is why I hate and like I don't like inherited tenants. I've
It's
rarely
tough.
had a good experience with an inherited tenant.
It is tough. Yeah. I
So,
right now have only two inherited tenants left, and they're great.
wow.
They don't do anything. They'll probably be there forever, but they're way under market rent, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
But it's actually funny because it's a duplex, and the mom and dad live on one side, and then the daughter and her family live on the other side, which is just kind of
Oh,
funny.
that's random. I think I
Yeah.
have 5 inherited tenants left, and the 5 that I do have left are actually fine. They're at 5 out of 30. So I don't, what's the math on that, but
Yeah,
they're not bad.
well, also my last inherited tenant to move out was the reel that I posted yesterday. All she left like probably 15 trash bags, dishes in the sink, food in a full fridge, full freezer, furniture, disgusting. So much fast food wrappers. Those dishes had to have been in the sink for months because she only ate Taco Bell. You could
I
see
did
that
not
evident.
realize she left it so messy. Like, I know you had told me, like, oh, she left some stuff and she left some trash. But then when I saw that reel, I was like, what the
Yeah.
heck?
Thankfully, it only took like an hour to clean out because it's a small unit, and it
Yeah,
and most of the trash was like, I mean, it all went straight into trash
like
bags,
literal trash.
literal trash. And I just hired a handyman and I just said clear everything out. And we were gonna renovate the whole unit anyways. So it was fine. I mean, it was dirty, but whatever. But moral of the story there is she actually, from the previous landlord, was on a monthly non-refundable security deposit plan. So the landlord before me gave an option where you could pay 1 month in full for your security deposit as you move in, like normal, and it's refundable, like normal. Or you could choose a non refundable option and split it into 12 payments, which to me is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of because it incentivizes absolutely no one to clean their unit or get stuff
Right.
out or not destroy it. And what happens if they move in and 2 months later destroy it and leave? Okay, so you got $80 of a security deposit and now
Exactly.
they left and they left it destroyed. So I have no clue why they did that. I can see how it can be helpful for C and D class rentals for people who don't have the money. And maybe you expect that every turnover is going to be
A
destroyed,
big rehab. Yeah.
a big rehab, but that's definitely not something that I'm going to pursue.
No, and it attracts the type of tenants that you don't want. Like if you're no, just to be quite frank, if you can't afford to pay 1 month's deposit and 1 month's rent, like I don't necessarily want you as a tenant because that means you're not very financially secure. Like you have no sort of savings.
The other funny thing about this tenant is she had a leg surgery, like a knee surgery. And I, like, when I inherited all of them, I looked them all up on Facebook and I noticed that she, like, had said on Facebook, like, oh, just got started with school again. Like, I feel like I'm turning a new leaf and like things are going good. And I was like, oh man, I feel so bad. I gotta like offer cash for keys and tell her that I need her out to renovate her unit. So I laid it on her and she was the very last one because I was like, okay, school ends in May. I know what college she went to. So I was trying to be like respectful around her school schedule. I wasn't going to make her with a leg brace move out of her apartment mid-semester. So I waited till the summer and then this is how she left it and treated me.
I know. That's why it's like the more and more I get into running a business of rental properties, I'm just like, okay, I have to take the human element out of it. I just have to function as a business. Like it's so hard though, but it's like time and again, it just bites me in the butt,
Mm-hmm.
which actually I'll tell another story at the end, but which is the same situation. I'm too nice, which I would never feel like I would have said that because I'm very straight to the point, but I actually saw on Instagram, Grace, that you are buying another property, and I have not heard about it at all. So I want
I
you to
thought I
tell me
told
about
you
it. Which
about
is
it.
like, no, which is so crazy because we talk every day. And I'm like, wait, she's
Well,
buying another property? Like she hasn't even told me yet?
I honestly I forget about it because it's kind of turnkey, which is not normal for us. And I'm like not crazy excited about it, but it's just like a good solid deal. So I'm like, why not? And here's why we want it. It's a single family home next to our 8 unit. It's like 3 houses down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and I have like two pockets in my city that I invest in that like I have 5 units on one street. And then now I'll have two fourplexes and a single family on one street. So I love when things are close together. But our plumber put us in contact with her and we negotiated a seller financing deal, which was a bit different than my usual seller financing deals. For those listening, I've done probably 5 or 6 in the last year. So she wanted, I'm trying to think, we put it under contract for 130, 8 grand down, 5.8% interest, which is a lot more than I wanted to pay. But she's an investor and she gets it and she knows, like what she can get if she was going to sell it on contract to maybe a tenant. She could probably get 7, 8, 9%. So I initially proposed 4%. We moved it to 5.8. And then it's a 30-year amortization on a 10-year balloon, which I feel
Awesome.
pretty good about.
So what did you say the purchase price was?
130.
Okay.
So our payment, I can't remember what the payment is, but we'll cash flow like around $200, which isn't crazy, but I think it's a solid house. It's a solid neighborhood and it's right next to our fourplexes. So I think we maybe will paint and that'll probably be it. It's probably like a 60s, 70s ranch house. And I actually reached out to some insurance agencies and said, hey, I have this house ready. Do you guys want to rent it? Because I don't really want to put a long-term tenant in there. It's just more work. And I always am scared that I'm going to get a bad tenant. But I should probably list it and get that going because I think we're supposed to close at the end of the month. But yeah, she's really nice. She's an investor. They had like 80 units and now they're down to 7.
Oh,
So too bad
wow.
I didn't find her a few years ago.
Yeah. Are you gonna ask her about the other units if she's interested in selling those?
Yeah, I did. She's not interested in selling the others. I think that they're like going to go
Yet.
to her daughter or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
darn
yet.
it.
I know. I'm like,
Well,
well, I could
maybe
be
her
her
daughter
daughter.
won't want them.
So yeah, I haven't really thought about it because I haven't really done anything. She is an investor, so she has been doing the whole closing process, which usually I do as the buyer because I'm working with homeowners who have no clue. So
Hmm.
I've really done like nothing, which is
Wow.
why I've forgotten to talk about it.
Yeah.
So not a grand slam and by any means, just a solid deal. So, and the only
Awesome.
reason we're gonna get it is because it is turnkey, because I have been promising forever that this summer, after we finish our 8 unit, which is the next update I have, that I was going to be done rehabbing and buying for like at least 3 months so that I could go travel and just take a massive break. Because Brant and I have been rehabbing for a year and a half straight and just like, going 100 miles an hour with no real break.
Hmm.
So I'm looking forward to having a break to get a lot of systems upgraded and in place, and then really take a good look at where we're at and what we want to do next instead of just buying without thinking and like not having the time to better our business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like I saw on Instagram last night or the night before that you posted that you're done with the 8 unit and like you
Yeah.
guys were out for drinks. And I was seriously so excited for you. Just like, oh my gosh, I know what that feeling is gonna feel like at my 11 unit when we flipped every
Hmm.
single unit and it's like functioning as a mini hotel midterm rental. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what a good feeling.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So this 8 unit, it's two fourplexes right next door to each other, next to this seller finance deal I just talked about. We bought it December 1, 2021. And so mid-July 2022, we got it done. Actually, 2 weeks earlier than my initial rehab plan was. So I'm like, ooh, good for
Woo, you're
me.
getting good.
Okay, but the rehab budget, on the other hand, but in a good way. We went way over budget because we were only planning on turning like 1 or 2 into midterm rentals and we ended up doing all 8. So the rehab budget grew a lot, but so did the income. So we're good with it. We think it'll still be a fantastic BRRRR. So Monday's our appraisal. So I'm not 100% done today. And Monday, I got to get all of those numbers together and like my leases and just all of that info so I can make sure I get a really good appraisal. And then we'll be like done. So that has been so exciting. But yeah, we DIY'd 8 units in like 8 months. So like a month a unit, which is really exciting, especially
So
because our
good.
first 2 rehabs were single family homes that took us 6, 7 months for one home.
Yeah, I can't wait to see before and after photos of the exterior because you got all new windows,
Hmm.
siding, and roofs. Like they're like
Yes.
brand new buildings.
Yeah.
They look so good, but I
They
haven't
look
seen
so
like a
good.
side by side comparison yet.
Yes. Okay. I need to post that. I have forgotten, but it looks so good. Yeah. It just is so exciting to stand outside and look at them and be like, wow, we did all of that and it's done. especially because when we bought those 8 units, I didn't even know how to analyze an 8 unit, but I knew it was a good deal based off like the rules of thumbs that I knew. And I just sat down and I was like, well, I guess today is the day I learned how to analyze a multifamily, like a bigger multifamily. Because before I'd only bought duplexes and figured it out, and it's been a great deal. So, knock on wood, the appraisal goes well, but it feels so good.
I can't wait to hear like your final numbers, like after the appraisal, after you know like what your mortgage is going to be and you know like what your rents are, like what your final cash flow bottom line is going to be.
Yeah,
And so
I'm
that's,
super
I love
excited.
that stuff, like the juicy, like money making details.
Yeah, I'm super excited too because then I can understand my entire portfolio of where we're at. And that's another reason why I wanted to take the break is to like get all my numbers in order so I know exactly what I'm making and what my goals are moving forward. Whereas when you keep buying, like you never know because you're never stabilized fully,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Right.
So
Yeah, it makes sense.
yeah,
It's
I'm so excited.
exciting.
I have like so many random things. Like I'm gonna go through my leases and like get my midterm rentals on Airbnb, increase my cleaning checklist and inspect and turnover checklist, and like all those things that go into making management so much easier and improving your bottom line that I just haven't had time to do because they were never a priority when we're buying, and doing a ton of rehabs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm kind of at right now too. I haven't been doing a good job of it, but it's like on my to-do list, like, okay, I need to start documenting these processes better so I can hand them off
hmm
soon.
And so, speaking of like stabilization, so for your 11 unit, how many inherited tenants do you have left there? And how many of those units will you rehab?
I have 6 inherited tenants left, soon to be 5. So I
hmm
guess, yeah, I have 5 left. I plan on converting all of them as they turn over to midterm rentals.
hmm
There are 2 tenants who I'm not sure that they'll ever leave. One of them's been there for 17 years and one of them's been there for like 9 or 10 years. And quite frankly, they're fine. Like I don't know that I would ever ask them to leave because the property functions so well as it is, even with five or six of the units not midterm rentals, that they're cool to stay. So
hmm
but once they do leave, if they ever do leave, like I'll convert their units as
Right.
well. But I would assume like by the time that happens, like will have sold the property.
Well, and it adds a little bit of stabilization. As much as I love midterm rental, I do still want to have my long-term rentals. I don't want to be all midterm.
Yeah.
I probably could, and I'd be fine and make my money back very quickly and be able to transition back to long-term rental easily if needed, but I just don't really want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes sense.
The other thing that I have going on right now is with my Airbnb or short-term rental in Clear Lake, Iowa, which is my first like true short-term rental. And it's been so fun. We are at like over 80% occupancy for July.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're set to make over $2,500 in cash flow in July. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can make that much with one property. I'm selling everything and only buying Airbnb short-term rentals
Isn't that
because
crazy?
it's so crazy. But we got such a good steal on that deal. But now I'm like, I am keeping my eye out for like some more hidden gems in like some markets that aren't oversaturated with short-term
hmm
rentals already, and that I can still buy at like a decent price.
That's funny that you say that because literally last night I was just thinking about Airbnb and I was like, I think I do want to do Airbnb, but I'm not, like you said, I think I'm keeping my eye open. I'm not like on the offense to look for one,
Right.
but I am keeping an eye open of like an opportunity that I see that would make at least a couple grand in cash flow. Granted, we're in Iowa, so you're not going to probably have a 10 grand cash flow property because the properties aren't going to be that much in and of
No.
themselves. But yeah, like you said, like niche markets, like not a big, massive lakefront property, but just like smaller
Yeah.
properties that could do well on Airbnb, better than a long-term rental, but still aren't going to be a ton of work, ton of rehab.
Yeah, like I'm not interested. That's exactly my strategy. I'm not interested in owning a giant cabin in the Great
hmm
Smokies or like, a huge lakefront property that can sleep 15 or 10. Like I want the smaller, cute little bungalows that are easier to manage but still turn a decent profit.
hmm
That's my investing strategy though. Like I want to be more passive than some investors. So I'm just like looking for easier options.
Yeah. And the reason I want to get an Airbnb is obviously for the higher cash flow, but also I'm trying to hire an internal property manager. And I'm like at the point where it doesn't make sense financially to hire somebody, but it's also been like a lot of work to keep doing it myself. So if I could get an Airbnb that adds a couple grand to my cash flow, I think that would be the perfect spot to be able to hire somebody. So like not only would I get the more cash flow, I'd be able to hire someone and have it make sense financially. So that's kind of where I'm at. But are you looking in any specific areas? Are you just like, do you have any in mind? Or is it just kind of whatever comes your way?
It's kind of like whatever comes my way. I've got my eye on like a few smaller markets, but I did do like kind of a lengthy search yesterday, but there wasn't really anything that piqued my interest too much. There was a cute little cabin in like northern Iowa. It's right on the border of Minnesota and Iowa. It's like 45 minutes from Okoboji, but it's very secluded and it's on like a little tiny pond. It was only $160,000 and it's got a little shed in the back that could be like a bunkhouse similar to like what we're going to do at Clear Lake. So but the town is literally 70 people. I mean, like not a town. It would be like a secluded like little retreat, but I don't know, like it's risky because there's like nothing else up there, but the purchase price is so low, like maybe it could work. I don't know. So it's on my radar, but
yeah. Something else that's kind of on my radar is I have been realizing that my midterm rentals are actually like low-key prime to be short-term rentals in my 8-unit because they're so close to downtown. And so I think maybe later I'm going to look up like on AirDNA the actual potential if I turned them over. I think if I did turn them to a short-term rental, I would need to like beef up the furnishings a little bit and like obviously my systems. But right now I've got the cleaner in place and I've got like the handyman in place, which is a really good feeling. So I'm like, man, like I could test one as a short-term rental and see how it goes. It's also tough because a lot of the travel nurses sleep during the day and I don't want to have like a short-term rental where people are loud and like disrupting my other tenants.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Who knows if I'll actually pursue that, but it is a thought.
Yeah, I think that like your units are all like 1 bedrooms, right? Or like some 2 bedrooms. So I feel like there's not going to be huge parties going on if you did turn it into an Airbnb. It's going to be more like people that are just couples that are in town or whatever. But, you know, if you do see a lull in that midterm rental market, it could be an awesome opportunity to try out the short-term rental thing.
Yeah. And I guess what I could do is one of the fourplexes has like a common entryway and the other fourplex has all their own exterior doors. Like there's no shared space. So I could try it on the ones that don't have the common spaces because hopefully there'd be a little more privacy, a little less chance of like disrupting my other tenants, but maybe I'll try that out.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us and getting a little behind the scenes look on what goes on in Grace and my daily life as full-time real estate investors. We're so happy that you're listening and you can catch us over at WIIRE.community on Instagram, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you loved today's episode, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to check us out and join our community at womeninvestinrealestate.com and follow us on Instagram at WIIRE with 2 eyes.community.